Have you ever made a really bad call, gotten called out on it, and just felt that immediate sting of shame? Or maybe you got defensive. Yeah, we've all been there. But what if that correction, that uncomfortable moment, was actually a gift? Today, we're diving into this incredible story about how a huge mistake can be turned into a brand new purpose. Okay, let's get into it.
This one verse from the Bible, this is pretty much the heart of our whole explainer today. It captures this just stunning turnaround. You've got a leader who, after a major failure, doesn't just get back on his feet. He goes out and actively leads his people back to God. So the big question is, how on earth did he get from point A to point B?
To really get that turnaround, we first have to understand the mistake. And we're talking about a guy named King Jehoshaphat, a leader who got himself into a really compromising spot. So let's set the scene a bit. At this time, Israel was a divided kingdom. Jehoshaphat was in charge of the southern part, Judah, and for the most part, he was a pretty good king. But he makes this critical error, a really bad judgment call. He decides to team up to make a political alliance with King Ahab from the northern kingdom. And listen, Ahab wasn't just some rival king. The Bible paints him as a notoriously wicked guy, one who is actively pushing the worship of the idol Baal all over his kingdom. So this dangerous partnership drags Jehoshaphat into a battle he never should have been in. And it sets the stage for a massive confrontation, not just with an enemy army, but with God himself. And this is where we get to the turning point. Jehoshaphat makes it back from the battle alive, but he's immediately met by one of God's prophets. Now, this wasn't about punishment, this was a course correction. And how he responded, it changed absolutely everything.
So, let's just trace this journey from failure right back to restoration. It all kicks off with that bad alliance with Ahab. Next up, the divine rebuke, straight from a prophet. But step 3, that's the pivot. Jehoshaphat's humble response. No excuses, no trying to defend himself, and that humility is exactly what unlocks the final step, a renewed, powerful purpose to lead his whole nation back to God.
You know, what's so powerful about this is the contrast. Our default setting when we get corrected is so often to throw up a wall of defensiveness, right? Or we just spiral into shame, or maybe we just feel like quitting altogether. But Jehoshaphat shows us a totally different way. His humility opens the door to repentance, and that repentance then fuels real positive action. He doesn't get stuck by his mistake, he's actually propelled forward because of the correction. And this brings us to the first huge lesson from this story. It's a total perspective shift that kind of reframes one of the most uncomfortable things we go through in life.
So the first big idea here is how we're supposed to see God's correction. According to the Bible, it's not meant to punish, it's meant to restore. It's actually shown as a loving act, something designed to pull us back to Him, not shove us away in shame. When you look at it that way, God's discipline isn't a sign that He's angry. It's actually proof of His love and how invested He is in us.
So, why is this ancient story so important for us right now? Well, because we all face correction, don't we? Whether it's God speaking to our conscience, or through a tough situation, or even through other people. How we see that correction completely determines whether or not we grow from it. Okay, so how do we actually put this into practice? The text suggests 4 really practical steps. Number 1, receive correction, don't resist it. Lean into it. 2, when you've messed up, go back to God quickly. Don't let that distance grow. 3, let the correction shape your heart, but don't let it shame your spirit. And 4, be that person who encourages others, reminding them that God's goal is always restoration. All right, so Jehoshaphat accepts God's correction. That's huge. But he doesn't just stop there with some quiet internal reflection. Nope, his repentance actually sparks action out in the world. And this brilliantly sets up our second key lesson. So, what does this actually look like? Well, Jehoshaphat doesn't just go pray in his room. He goes out and totally reforms the nation's justice system. He appoints new judges and leaders. And listen to the instructions he gives them. Act with integrity, be faithful, and have a deep respect for God. This is so important. His repentance wasn't just about feeling sorry. It led to a real, tangible commitment to public justice. And you might be thinking, okay, that's great for a king, but what does that have to do with me? Why is this whole idea of living justly so critical for us in our normal, everyday lives?
It's important because it's how we show the world what God is actually like. This isn't just about making big kingly decrees. It's about having integrity in our homes, being honest at our jobs, and acting with fairness in our neighborhoods. It's about our faith becoming something people can actually see through our actions.
So let's make it super practical. How do we live this out? First, we can just ask God for the help and the strength to live with integrity. Second, we can make a choice to be fair and honest even when it's the harder thing to do. Third, we can base our decisions on what's true, not on what everyone else is doing or the pressure we feel. And fourth, we can get behind leaders, whether at work, in our communities, or anywhere else, who themselves act with justice and humility.
All right, let's bring all of this home. We've looked at Jehoshaphat's mistake, we've seen his incredible response, and we've pulled out two huge principles from his story. Now, let's just boil it all down into a clear path forward for us.
So here are the key takeaways. Thing 1. Try to reframe God's correction. It's not a curse, it's a gift of His love. Thing 2. Remember that our faith is meant to be lived out loud through justice and integrity. And third, and this is a big one, remember that how we respond to our mistakes is what really matters. It can be the very thing that leads to restoration and a deeper purpose.
If you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this simple, powerful call to action. Accept God's correction, and then, with His grace, go and do what's right.
The source material ends with a prayer that just perfectly sums up this whole spirit of humility and action. It's a simple but really profound request for a soft heart that's open to correction and for a life that's committed to honoring God through truth and justice. And that leaves us with one final challenging question. The next time you're faced with correction, whether it's from God or from someone else, which path are you going to choose? Are you going to go down the road of defensiveness and shame? Or will you, like Jehoshaphat, choose the path of humility, the one that leads not just to your own restoration, but to a renewed purpose to do what is right?